fire and to not declare. People don't understand the value of dirt. But anyway, we actually started doing alternative building. I built a straw bale house in Octagon. We hewed the logs. We got a wood cutting permit, and we did dead fall that was risen up. And I've heard that you would know, but if you fall your trees in the fall, but you keep them off the ground, then as the freeze and thaw, everything will come off. I've also done straw bale frames where you're peeling logs in the spring. It can be a layer as well, and so I like the idea of just kind of having an easier draw knife experience on dry wood. But anyway, listening frame, and then we knocked them out of straw bales. It cost us about $3,000 because we got used windows that were really beautiful. It was in Castle Valley outside of Mower, Utah, so we had a view of Castle Tower in our window, and just a phone wire coming in, and we were getting it on solar by the time we left that piece of property. So it had two built structures up, so we had two queen-size beds up in the office and one in the kitchen. Because it was straw bale, we were able to do our morning fire and our afternoon fire and cook our meals on it, and we hardly ever used the little propane burner stove that we had. So we got those from one class one night that gave the nuts and bolts of how to do straw bale, and since then a lot of the things that we did have changed. For example, you no longer use tar paper and chicken wire and weave it together with twine. You mud right on the straw. So the key to having a straw bale barn raising with friends is, first of all, don't drink too much alcohol, because when you stack those bales, they can be really wonky. Like, don't let people do bad work, because then you're trying to like kick the bale. Okay, alternative building choices. So I'd like to go through, just the idea of making sure in your building that you do use the principles. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Wintertime is a really good time to go down to your local restore, kind of keep your eyes out for really good like cabinets or stuff that you're going to use in your house, because it's the plumbing. Make sure you get your trades going with your local favorite plumber and electrician and stuff like that, because in our area where there aren't covenants, or there's no zoning or covenants for building, there's no building regulations. So try to find a place where you're buying a piece of land that doesn't have a bunch of these, because and the building people are always really interested to see what your project's going to be. So talk with your local building inspector, tell them what you want to do, and they're either behind it or they're not. And a lot of this stuff you can workshop it for useful. You can workshop it, and people, as long as you're doing it educationally for someone. And I thought, gosh, you could do these projects where either on your own piece of property for Airbnb with composting toilets, you could have all these little cabins that are built with all these different modalities. Throw a little party to learn each one of these, and you rent it out for Airbnb for $50 a night. So with a composting toilet. So you can do this ecologically. Come on in. There's more room over here, and you can use the sofa. There's a thingy here you can sit on. I don't know, they kind of don't take too much weight, but there's another chair. Yeah. So then I left my straw bale house. Oh, the other thing that we never do with straw bale is you never use cement in your plasters. So you do a straw clay, like mixed heavily with, and you off the internet you can get to find out what percentage of your soil is clay versus silt versus sand. So you want to have a high enough clay content that it's able to form a ball. You throw it on the ground and it'll still kind of make a ball. And you chop up your straw with a lawnmower or a chipper shredder, and you mix this clay, sand, straw together. You can kind of do a cop with your feet, where you put it out on a tarp and you pull it to you and you stomp on it and pull it. That's for making really thicker stuff. But this stuff you want kind of sloppy, like maybe your sand, clay, water mixture is. Yeah, clay slip. Just Google clay slip and clay slip. So it's like when you're doing straw clay infill, which I'll go into next, or one of these slides here, that it's the consistency of a chocolate milkshake. So you have one of those little spinner things on your drill, and you make it like a milkshake, and that's what you can then mix with your straw. Yeah. And then with the clay slip infill, and we'll get into that, or they call it light straw. Thank you. Then you do it on like a 4x8 piece of sheetrock, and you're tossing it with a fork like a salad, so that each piece of straw is embalmed in that clay slip. So you have anything from the juiciness of clay slip and then you're pouring that clay slip into your form, stomping on it with your feet and getting it to trickle down in through all the straw there. And just on that side note, I'm always going to say I have a son that suffered for 3 years, causing us to move to Panama and back because of black mold. Do not deal with mold in any way, shape, or form, especially with straw. And the best way to do that if you're going to use any straw in your building is you use lime. I talked to, who's the guy that has fungi perfecti? Mycelium running. Anyway, I asked him at a conference, I told him about my son's black mold condition, because once you're damaged by mold or mustiness or anything and you've been breathing that in, you're sensitive to all the molds and all the stuff like that. You don't want to live in a house where that's weeping through the walls. So in all of your stuff that you're doing with your natural clay plasters and stuff like that, add lime. And there's a gal on here in a video. So I'm going to talk about the principles, and then I'm going to talk about some resource trainings, and I'd like to hear some, like, thank you, bring out any technological ideas or resources. I want to get my talent too, because I am always one of those people that's like, oh, when I have my 4 acres, I want to make, in the Kalispell Valley, my dream would be to have workshops making little cabins of all this. And I have this little idea that if I had more acreage, or I'll preface it that if you want your own cabin with your own name on it, and we'll split the rent when you're gone, you bring the materials, bring the group together, throw the workshop, we'll help you throw the workshop, and you can build your own cabin in your own name for your posterity. And like I said, we'll rent it out, and we'll divide the rent when you're not there, so that we're all part of like this permaculture teacher built resort, because it's representative of your art and your knowledge and your skill, and this is how we learn, and this is how we teach people in a local area. And you can get kids into it, and then I'm sure there's a grant person in here that would really help, or find grants for teaching kids all these alternative building skills. It's all with your hands. And the biggest argument with any of this is it's not cost efficient when it comes to labor. Well, do I have to go out and do 50,000 massages in order to pay for somebody to build a house for me that'll be like done with a mortgage in 20 or 30 years when I'm too old to do massage? No, I don't want to do that. I'd rather spend 2 summers building my own house, making my own self tired, getting in shape while I do it. And so there are these ways that I've found, like, I'm getting old, and I have a spine that, close to 50 is starting to show signs of wear. So, so anyway, yeah, be very wise with your spine. Do not pick up heavy rocks, my neighbor used to say. So, let me get, okay, so in the book, Serious Straw Bale, it's a very good book, because even if you're not going to build with straw bale and then 7 different varieties of straw bale building, it teaches you how to do every different kind of floor system, every roof system, every kind of air exchange system, which is very important to not have mold, a good air exchange system, and heating and cooling options. And that's another thing, if anybody has any great, like, oh, you have to have a vent come up through your floor, then you're going to know what to do or not do when you're building your floor. You don't want to build a normal house and retrofit it to permaculture ways, or ways of natural cooling and heating. You want to be able to build it this way. So it's a wonderful opportunity to start over. So I just kind of, in order to show you guys some things, I've kind of just thrown together this morning a bunch of different kinds of little videos that have little snippets. So we'll watch some of these videos, and then we'll talk about things. But please get Serious Straw Bale. It's a really good book for any home builder. Serious Straw Bale. It's out of Canada. All the good stuff is coming out of Canada these days. Make sure you buy Urban Profitable Farming by Curtis Stone while you're at it, and Permaculture Market Farming by Martine Fortier. Those are also amazing books that are coming out of Canada.
What was the second book you said?
Profitable Urban Farming, Curtis Stone. Fantastic new one. And The Market Farmer by Jean-Martin Fortier. He's great videos, and they're starting a new one. Oh, and because we all need that greenhouse that's passive solar, look up Rob Avis of Verge Permaculture. He does a whole training that I just signed up for and bought it. And you can have the whole engineered plans for $250. The course is $250, and it's like this 10-week course that teaches you everything you need to know about how to build and manage and run a passive solar greenhouse, Canadian style. They're up in Edmonton.
How do you spell his last name?
Avis, A-V-I-S, Rob Avis. He's kind of like the engineer type of people doing a PDC. So for those people who have a scientific mind and want a PDC, just send them to Rob, because he's an engineer. So he teaches no woo-woo.
First one was serious.
Serious straw bale, and I don't remember who the owner was. This one I think is a little bit out of order. Oh, bear with me. Oh, I should have brought my thing. Oh yeah, this was like my last slide. So, a good resource, Shelter Designs out of Missoula is, in my research, the best and cheapest, closest yurt makers. And they're a little bit, like, so popular that they're a little bit behind. So if you want to order, you know, this might be a $12,000 possibility to start on a piece of land. Okay, so there's videos on YouTube. If you look up shelterdesigns.com, all the different options you can have and add to your yurt. And these things run for like $150 a night on Airbnb. I mean, you literally, if you can somehow get a loan or cash to get these things, there's only on Airbnb, there are only like 2 or 3 yurt rentals. Like there's one in Missoula and they charge like $350 a night. And others, you know, their fire is lit by the time these people walk in. There's one in Whitefish and they love it. Yeah, people have done that.
Well, they have some over in Washington on the coast. I know my daughter and her mother-in-law and son-in-law, my son-in-law, go there and they crab and they stay in yurts, and there's about 10 of them at this one facility for people to stay in while they're doing crabbing.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah.
So, yurts, they're wonderful. I love Hayes. He's a wonderful guy that started Shelter Design, blah, blah, blah. But Montana, hot summers and cold winters. And I mean, I've seen, Skeeter had one of the nicest yurts by this woman, Jenny Pell. I don't know if you've ever met her. And that thing is just so cold. When you had it up here, I've never seen.
It's a glorified tent.
Yeah,
and I would still try to have shade over it. I'd still do a hops growing over it in the summer, or I'd do shade screen over it in the summer. I'm a big fan of posts and shade screen, because I think that literally the sun is too strong and we need to be under shade, and we're just like these little animals, and we're trying to build shade through trees, but sometimes all we can afford is a barley field that has nothing on it. And so, you know, build your shade structures in order to work under. Don't just make yourself be out there baking in the sun. And you can go to any kind of nursery supply place like Farm Tech is a really great resource to get things in bulk. And so they have shade screen and Rameneh and the cloth, the season extender cloth. They've got plastic, you know, everything. So Farm Tech is a great, and they do credit too. So if you need some of the stuff on credit.
My partner's been working for Rainier here for 8 or 10 years. He and I have started a solid wall yurt business.
Neat.
Just done one, but we're going into business. And solid wall, you can put 4x or 6x walls. You can put all the insulation you want into.
Well, that's.
And I've seen them with the silo top on them. Is that what you use?
No, you can't use a silo top. We're making panels that fit in there. They're panel walls, and they just stack on a trailer, and then we bolt them together.
Do you have a website, so if we want to order one of your yurts? Or like a phone number or something? Are you building one for
Medicine
other
Circle.
So you're working with the people that own Rainier?
No. He's worked for Rainier, putting up yurts
Got it.
around the country and the world when they can't find anybody to put them up. And then he trains people to put their yurts up. But he knows enough about them that now we're getting into solid walled, and they're much warmer and solid, and they fit building codes.
And what's the contact information that somebody could reach you to get more information about this?
Yeah, that's.
Medicine Circle.
Medicine Circle.
In Priest River?
Yurt guy.
Yeah, you'll see his stuff on
It's all
Medicine.
right here. Okay, and your name is again?
Robert Douglas, his is David Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff.
Did you ever see?
Medicine Circle.
Did you ever see the little yurt that David built that Skeeter used at the Dayton Permaculture course? It was this little mobile, modular yurt. I mean, it would be great for a seasonal anyway.
That's what these are. They're modular walls. You just, depending on the diameter, whether it's 12 or 14 or 16 sides, they're 4-foot sides. So whatever diameter is, you just stack these on a trailer and take them off to the side.
Cool. And then Rick, you had a question?
I was just going to comment. It's like the ones that we built. The one that we built was a four season at Sundog. It had just 2 inches of rigid insulation in the walls, but we did the cone ceiling, and then we did another roof, and then we did a ceiling underneath it that was just a foot shorter, which gave us 2 feet of space at the top, and then it tapered down to not enough. But we stuffed that full of salvaged R30, and I had a rocket stove in it, and with an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, that thing would stay at 55 degrees all winter long.
Okay, let me tell you this thing. I can't remember what the term is for. I think it's called a freezing roof or whatever. And in my architect uncle from Southern California, he's been studying this whole thing, and he's like, you people up in the snow, if you're gonna do like metal roofing on top of your roof, separate it so that you don't get the freeze and thaw on your metal roof and then have water back up under your eaves, which is a big cause of water damage in your house. So put a little bit of, freezing strip or whatever, however they do it, but it's called something like a freezing roof or something like that, which is key in this cold climate where you get that thaw and frost and the backup of ice on your things that go underneath.
So you're just describing creating an airspace between your insulated layer and your final layer?
Yep. Okay, so really quick, floor systems are always like a big expense, and foundations. And I love the idea of, I'm just going to put this out there, but we'll get to the earthbag section of this. So the stem wall is the basis, the wall almost like a footer. It goes, it's up to about this high or whatever. And you could do, in the olden days, they did stacked rock. And because it could shift, these 1,000-year-old structures and cob homes are just on stacked rock, so they can float. Well, you could do the same thing with a rubble trench. So look up rubble trench foundations, where you get your foundation dug out, and then you fill it with gravel and you tamp it really well, and then you put 2 layers of earthbag going around, and then whatever you're going to have after that, your straw bale or your framed house or whatever, or, I'm not sure, you can look into it, but a rubble trench with an earthbag stem wall or some sort of a round earth stem wall might be a potential. I don't know about round earth stem wall, but having the earthbag or the hyperadobe, and we're going to talk about that. So this is a really interesting video I came across on how to do a simple floor, and I think, oh my God, how would this be? Because you're totally still connected to the earth. So the first of this video is kooky, so you have to go to about a minute 55.
1/2 inch cement to 3.5 inches of soil for a total depth of 4 inches. Mix with a rotor tiller while you're spraying it with water. Tamp it down and cure it for several days.
So you have rotor, so you mix it up with
Now
cement.
for the radiant heat, the tubing is 5/8 oxygen barrier pads. It enters the building, serpentines throughout the floor at a depth of 3 inches and exits near its entrance. Enough planning, it's time to get started.
So he mixed
The
rototilled
tubing is
in
temporarily
cement,
laid
Portland
out.
cement into the subsoil.
At the starting point, the tube
I
is
think.
placed through the wall. Outside the building, it looks like this.
And then you can attach it to whatever
Karen is
heating
loosening
system's
up the
gonna be.
dirt floor with the rototiller.
This
A little
is-
spray of water.
Yeah,
dampens
this is
it.
earthbag. So they're rototilling up the subfloor, little water to keep the dust down.
The guys use shovels to get where the tiller cannot reach. Time to throw the cement on.
Portland cement, super cheap.
Again, Karen grabs
Like
a
$9 a bag.
to mix it up. And a little more water is added. Now the guys insert tubing into the ground. They dig trenches and walk the tubing right into place.
Somewhere I keep thinking there should be a
The
layer
end
of
the tube
insulation
gets
underneath,
placed
but
through the wall.
Yeah.
Probably in our climate, you might want
Back on the
to dig it out
outside,
first.
Bryson is there to catch it. With the radiant tubing installed, it's time to compact the soil cement. But with no room for a steamroller, Gary and Bryson find another way.
This is the number one problem with earthbag construction.
Gary works to level out the floor.
Tamping.
The floor has to cure slowly, so it's wet down periodically over the next few days. After several days, the floor is ready. To finish the floor surface, the guys will add a thin layer of earthen floor. But that's for another day. First, someone has to figure out how to deliver hot water through the tubing.
So this has a few videos with it. So mylittlehomestead.com. Okay, so styles. Sorry, so it's fun going through all this stuff on YouTube because if you really want to look at any of these different styles, you can get all kinds of versions on here. So this guy will show you everything about doing a roundhouse. There's a school in BC that a friend of mine who did round wood construction, they teach you the old Japanese style of round wood construction. And when you really get the grasp of round wood construction, especially he learned part of the schooling was green wood construction. So it actually, I don't know, really fits into itself in place when it dries or something. I'm not sure how, but some Japanese style. It's a round wood builder's school in BC, and he said if anyone has the opportunity to study there, it's totally worth it. If you really start thinking about round wood, it's the permaculture perfect, like coppice forest. There's a book out called The Woodland Way, and it's all about how in ancestries in like England and stuff like that, before you had wood mills, everybody did coppicing plants, and there's certain species that grow better. You cut it, and then it just keeps sprouting up. And yeah, Ben Law's book, and then they also had the farming the forest, and so coppicing and growing coppice plants for roundwood for the specific use of cutting and recutting and using it for building materials is a huge study in and of itself, because it gives you a reason to plant more woody species that when you coppice it or pollard it, you can then use those for redwood or roundwood building. And anything from 4 inches or 6 inches is like as strong as steel. So it's our bamboo. And then on that note, we need our bamboo contacts up here because I want a Montana Bamboo Center. Now this talk is really great, and I welcome you all to watch the full talk on TED about this gal. But I just wanted to, I hope you can hear the beginning of it, because her story at the very beginning, just, it's like what we can be doing for the future generations. Because architecture is really an expression of who we are in these squares.
When I was 9 years old, my mom asked me what I would want my house to look like. And I drew this fairy mushroom. And then she actually built it. I don't think I realized this was so unusual at the time, and maybe I still haven't, because I'm still designing houses. This is a 6-story bespoke home on the island of Bali. It's built almost entirely from bamboo. The living room overlooks the valley from the 4th floor. You enter the house by a bridge. It can get hot in the tropics, so we make big curving roofs to catch the breezes. But some rooms have tall windows to keep the air conditioning in and the bugs out. This room we left open. We made an air-conditioned tented bed. And one client wanted a TV room in the corner of her living room. Boxing off an area with tall walls just didn't feel right. So instead, we made this giant woven pod. Now, we do have all the necessary luxuries, like bathrooms. This one is a basket in the corner of the living room.
You do that with willows.
And I gotta tell you, some people actually hesitate to use it. We have not quite figured out our acoustic insulation.
That would be like wattle and daub might help. But these are the composting
So there are lots of
toilets.
things that we're still working on.
And wood shavings
But
is all
one
you
thing
need.
I have learned is
And
that
you're a
bamboo
birder.
will treat you well if you use it right.
So you guys
It's
can,
actually a wild grass. It grows on otherwise unproductive land, deep ravines, mountainsides. It lives off of rainwater, spring water, sunlight. And of the 1,450 species of bamboo that grow across the world, we use just 7 of them. That's my dad. He's the one who got me building with bamboo. And he is standing in a clump of Dendrocalamus asper niger that he planted just 7 years ago. Each year it sends up a new generation of shoots. That shoot, we watched it grow a meter in 3 days, just last week. So we're talking about sustainable timber in 3 years.
I want to put out a shout out. I have a gal that has a 15-hectare farm, permaculture farm with a bamboo. You have to treat it because it has all these spines and stuff. You have to like cure it or something in tanks. She's got the whole tank, the everything built to cure and deal with bamboo, and it's a permaculture farm that she started. She will give anyone like 3 years of free rent, half the whole nursery stock. Like if anybody wants to move to Panama, there is a farm lease waiting to happen, and she'll just like take 20% of what you make on it. She's getting too old. She's 74. She found out about permaculture about 4 or 5 years ago. Totally fell in love with it. Turned her land into a permaculture plantain and running pigs, and I helped her do like paddock shift system with pigs and with chickens, and getting her plantain planted. Like it was so hard to get into these people's mind that work at what contour means. And so if you give them the whole idea of the water hose where you have the 2 lines, the water, and it's like, have you ever done this level, a nivel, a contorno, you know, they're still planting their rows like that, you know? And so anyway, finally he's like, oh, you know the water hose thing? I'm like, do that. And I mean, I even had a laser level and everything. I'm like, see, that's level, you know? And I'm like, plant your plantains, like, you know. Anyway, so some of these things, and you don't really like know how to say the right swale or ditch. You know, there's always different words for different things. And, so that, yeah, it was really fun going there. This is really.
If you do take the gig in Panama, I would lend a helping hand with the technical knowledge.
Oh yeah, well I was down there, and it's between the ocean and the volcano, and my family was only happy at the like under 84 degree volcano temperature. But down there, they would have needed AC, and it was too hot in the day to be outside, and they're kind of, so my family would not go for it. So I won't be doing it, but if somebody who doesn't mind heat like this, or hotter. Yeah, right. This is a cool thing. I just wanted you to hear the intro. This is a woman who did a big thing.
We're all making it up as we go along. Our ancestors were free.
We're all making up as we go along.
So we're all still trying to figure it out. Keep steadfast to your passion and your dreams. As you keep moving forward in that, you see things aligning and falling into place.
Can't
bring
breathe.
peace. Go with that, follow it, and it's an integrity to your values,
little ones.
responsibility to what you want to offer the world.
So just know that alternative building is in our ancestry. These square things that we need these contractors and subcontractors and tape measures and all that, it's not part of our DNA. This is. But, you know, it's not to say that that's a bad thing. So,
What's the name of that one?
this one is Woman Builds Breathtaking Sustainable Dome
I've been asking
Home.
about my van, Gladys. I filmed the whole build process, and I will be posting a video about Gladys in the relatively near future, so be patient about that. It is coming. Today's video is about
So you'll see how she built that whole thing. And see, these kind of things you can just keep adding
Before we
on.
get to that, a quick
You know?
word from our sponsor, graphicstock.com.
Okay. I want to show you guys one that really excited me though, and I wish I had my little stereo thing. I didn't even think to bring it. Can you guys hear some of this? Do you want me to turn off the fan a little bit while
It's
this is?
still over in the other place.
Hello, I'm Hajar Jabran. I'm the creative director of the Jabran Center. While I was building the Jabran Center,
Can you hear that?
developed an innovative way of building low-cost dome homes. Maybe you've seen pictures on our website or the articles. Or
This is aircrete. They mixed concrete with soap foam.
built at the Jabran Center.
So it's really light with soap foam.
With Steve's artistic genius and our 2 skilled Thai masons.
Isn't that beautiful?
Is there a website for it, or how do you find it?
Gaia domes.
less than
.com or
$9,000.
aircrete
We've
domes,
been swamped with requests.
and you'll find
from all
this
over
guy's
the
information.
world.
They're teaching a class somewhere in Colorado in September.
After we
It's about
develop
a $1,200 class, and they teach you
elevation
exactly how to
from
make
paper
these and
computer,
everything that you
then we
need.
drive
There was
this
a guy in
pipe.
California that actually
set
is
up a
fairly
pole
famous for
with
these
length
types
of
of
dome.
concrete.
Right, with the earth bag.
Pivots
Yeah,
around
with
the center of
concrete.
the dome.
And they made them up in
Use it to lay out
Wisconsin,
the
a bunch of
foundation,
different
and
places.
later to
And
accurately
so this is so these are
or whatever you
the
choose to use.
you know the dome pieces that you make, and they just fit together. This is out of bottles,
Turn old bottles.
plastic bottles, glass bottles.
Then we build forms.
And he was one of those people that said, you know, I've
arches,
tried.
Windows and doorways. Once they are in place, we use the pole to lay the bricks. To stop the bricks from falling as they lean in, we use counterweights suspended over the outside of the dome. Our
And
first
once you have the
domes were
form
made
to
with
make
clay
these
bricks
parts
and
that
cinder
connect
blocks,
it, the
which
materials
offer
are only
more
$70
insulation
per
and
one, and all these are
ecological value.
reusable forms.
In my search for better materials and
Can you
easier
see those in
methods,
Montana
I
in a resort?
explored the use of adobe, cob, compressed earth bag, hemp, and even recycled polystyrene. I was at a loss until I discovered a material I'd never even heard of before, yet many environmental architects consider it to be the building material of the future. Aircrete is a lightweight masonry product that is infused with tiny air bubbles, which expands its volume many times. It provides good thermal and acoustic insulation.
Good thermal.
It's waterproof and impervious to insects.
No mold.
and termites.
I can live in one of those.
Made of completely recyclable, non-toxic, non-corrosive materials. It will
What's that show?
Termites.
We'll eat your wood.
Big wood, but they won't eat that.
cold and difficult to work with. Aircrete is easy to work with. It dries overnight to a
Could
density
be
similar
bomb-proof.
to wood. It can be cut, carved, drilled, and shaped with woodworking tools. It accepts nails, screws, and is easily repaired. And because its primary ingredient is air, it's eco-friendly and inexpensive to produce. Aircrete is simply a mixture of water, ordinary cement, which is made of powdered limestone, and a water-based lather that looks like shaving cream. You need a foaming agent and a foam generator to produce the thick lather, and a special mixer to fold the lather into the mixture. Commercial equipment is heavy and costly.
Well, here he's saying
Thus,
commercially it was
Aircrete
too
has been
expensive to have the
most
equipment, but
used.
now they can figure it out
With the
in
help
Home
of my
Depot.
genius
Like,
son Joel,
so that's,
CEO
his son is an engineer.
automation.
Now, his son is an engineer, so Infinite Automation Systems is where you're gonna find how to create one of these machines that can make it very inexpensively. They're saying that with about $10,000, you could have all the, everything you need for
This little machine replaces
just
the
popping
heavy
one after
equipment
another
that
out of
costs
these
tens of thousands of dollars. And where conventional equipment only produces one batch at a time, our little machine is amazing. It will produce over 10 gallons per minute all day long with ease.
and
We
it's
also
light
created
enough to just pack up in a
special
duffel bag and take on an airplane and set this up for
Our
someone
forms
else.
are made of inexpensive and easily accessible materials that can be reused over and over again. You simply pour in the liquid aircrete and let it harden overnight. The material cost for an arch like the one pictured is about $75. The material for a bare aircrete dome home like Steve's is less than $2,000, and that includes the foundation and the subfloor. Arches transform the awkward curvature of a dome into flat, vertical surfaces that are more practical for windows, doors, closets, furniture, etc. They also make it easy to connect different sizes of domes in countless configurations. Flat rectangular blocks require a lot of extra labor and
This
materials
is the
to
form
smooth
that
over.
creates
So
the
we
dome.
developed
You
a way of casting larger aircrete blocks that already have the curved shape of the dome. This of course saves time and money.
Oh my God, it's so light!
And we plan to make it even more
I want
efficient. We're developing reusable forms to cast
Reusable
the
forms.
entire dome. We'll cover a bent steel skeleton with thin wood slats woven like a giant hat, covered with a waterproof fabric. It will imprint a beautiful design on the interior of the dome ceiling.
My favorite thing
Base
is
of the
Spain
building
is
with
this.
old growth timber, siding 80% renewable have a growing need for housing. We've developed a truly revolutionary system. Fast, easy, and elegant aircrete structures answer the need for high-quality, low-cost housing
They're beautiful.
everywhere.
See the snowy mountains
With our
outside.
equipment and basic training, you too can have a
It is
solid,
air.
eco-friendly,
We'll talk about
waterproof, fire-proof, insect-proof
it would be good to know, but I have an idea and then we can chat about options.
that makes your heart smile. This project is a collaboration between many of my
So
staff.
watch the full video on
All of us
YouTube,
at
Aircrete
Rameneh.
Domes. And look how much fun they're having building
Click the
it.
like button, spread the word,
The Gibran Center.
share it on Facebook.
That's the
and
guy
please
talking
sign up for
that does
one of
the
our
classes. So if you go to this website and find out when they're having this training in Colorado, if anybody wants to get a wild hair and road trip, I can be talked into that. Yeah. I'm like, I have to be there. It's coming up in September, and I don't know what it was. There was one out on the Olympic Peninsula in August, and I just couldn't make it. It was my child's diabetic camp, and I had to drive in there. It was about $1,200, yeah. But it was a 10-day thing, so it's great food and everything. It's, you can't beat it. And then if you get this whole technology, you could just pop these things out, and then that could be your training skill. That you just go places and they'll put on a workshop for you if you have a good venue that has electricity, has lodging, has water, has whatever. They will come to you with a workshop if you have 10 people that you can sign up for it or something like that. Or 35. I can't remember what the minimum number is, but check it out because that's what's turning me on these days. Because I have gone through the gamut of all these things. Okay, so this is another company out of Germany, just to see kind of where, like, a lot of people are talking about doing hempcrete and infill systems that are this light straw. And just to kind of show you what these guys are up to that you could do too, where they're doing panel systems.
Wow, das ist irgendwie, das ist anders. Eigentlich könnte man auch sagen, aus Stroh wird Stein.
And I like this idea better than bales because you can mix lime with this, everything here. And you don't have the mold factor. They can get them 5 stories tall. Building schools out of them and
to
stuff.
build 5 stories. We wanted to raise the bar.
No, it's an infill system with wood frame. Isn't that beautiful?
So what I was seeing them raise up there was raw straw, just cased in plywood. Did they put any plasters on that? Did they seal it in any manner?
No, I thought they were raising the infill system. I don't know what they were putting the bales down in. Maybe it was in the outside of the footer.
No, there were forms that they forced the bales into, but I didn't notice whether they put a plaster on it.
Yeah, it showed that one scene of them spreading. It looked like a concrete plaster, but it might have been.
I missed it.
So those metal straps are a nice way to get lateral tension or lateral strength on it and hold your bales. One thing I wanted to so I haven't watched this whole video, but people go into different tangents. Okay, so the Out on Bale book is really cool because if you want cabinets on the inside, you can do a normal standard 22-inch framing, which is just a normal framed house. And you actually take a corte madera, chainsaw. I lose the words in English all the time. So Alzheimer's kicking in. So you notch the bales with a chainsaw and then you slip it right into it because the bales are usually about 24 inches wide. So you notch it and you slip it right in. If you want your cabinets, you put your studding on the inside, and if you want siding on the outside, you put your studs on the outside and slip your bales outward. And you can always run runners floor to ceiling in order to hold cabinets. But no matter, even if you do have siding, you still have to put all your plaster on the bale. You don't have to do the finish coats, but you plaster the bales because you want to embalm those bales. And ideally, your first coat would be over like inch and a half thick, and it's filling in all the holes, and you're mudding up all the holes. And the bales are messy and they're really uneven, and so it's more of a real organic thing. But if you want to just slap something up, I mean, our whole house went up in a day with bales, so it was kind of cool. But you are doing a lot you're doing a lot more work with the plasters, and then so you have 3 layers of plasters. You have a fill coat, a scratch coat, and a finish coat. So and
how
not.
many stories? Just one?
We did one, but it was kind of tall, and so, and then, of course, you have the common, you know, looking at your forest and doing some sort of a notched log, and so, personally, I lived in a log cabin, and the ends rot, and I don't know what would have stopped that because they were under eaves, but they still rot, and there's all kind of bugs that come in, and I mean, personally, I hate log cabins.
Well,
I shouldn't
all right,
say that.
today
I
we're
don't
going to
really
talk
like
about
log cabins.
the truth about log cabins. What's the truth behind log homes? How I feel that so many people are being deceived about log cabins, and the most basic premise of all, and that is the notches, the corners of a log cabin.
So I don't know all about what he has to say, but I think that efficiency-wise, there's a lot of wood out here, and a lot of us buy forested areas that has a lot of small diameter wood, and log cabins could really be a good thing to do, and it's a worthy thing to have a little cabin. That's why I love this idea of just having a lot of little cabins that are an example of everything, and it's all on YouTube.
One of our relatives' house went down below Missoula, about 100 miles. That is a Sears and Roebuck order. You could order a log cabin. It's like a one-room log cabin, probably about 24 by 16.
Like Lincoln logs, so they just put it together.
Yeah, and they just put it together. You order it, they mailed it to your property.
So,
okay.
You must remember, of course, the word play and the word game.
So he's putting like work and play and everything. So I just wanted to show you this system here is, and I think I have another picture, but I'm not sure. But you go into the whole world of learning about hyperadobe, because earthbag, you can get the poly bags, they're cheaper than the burlap bags. You have to stuckle them in a year because they start to deplete in the sun. What I don't like about earthbag is that you are supposed to have 4-pronged barbed wire, 2 rows of it, and I hate working with barbed wire because eventually you get barbed. And it's an added expense, and when I did my earthbag wall, I did it right next door from the woman, Khaki Hunter, lived down the street from me in Moab, and she's the one that does the earthbag house book that shows that beautiful earthbag, and I was there when they built it and made it. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I ordered all my poly bags for $100. I ordered my dump truckload of filled dirt for like $100. And so I had this great wall that I was building. I was a single mom, and I was just doing a few bags a day. I was amazed at how quickly it went up. It was like, oh my gosh, this is like I have a wall, and it's beautiful. And I made this arch, and it was just so cool. And I loved working with the earth bags. And what I learned later is that you have to really tuck in the tails of it as you flip it under and do it and tuck it in. Because then when you go to plaster, you don't have all these little tails sticking out. So that's a really important one. And then the plaster was really good because you have so much fun. You just mix it in a mixer, and then you just slam it onto the wall, and it just sticks. It just goes right in there. And so you have to get your slam down. And one trick about mudding is they say that you don't pull. You have to learn how to do a backhanded push, because I ruined my wrist for about 2 or 3 years. And I was also doing the infant potty training thing. So I was always holding my child out to go pee instead of bracing her on my legs. It's a girl, obviously they're so much easier to do that than little boys, because you're just like, well, what do you do? It's like, it doesn't go back easy, so you just like, so. But yeah, if you want to know the whole infant potty training thing, you don't need diapers. I do a whole talk on that. You can listen to it on purpose.
But you digress.
But I digress.
I just wanted to mention that I met a man in North that's doing paper sharing his knowledge with just for free with workshops to do paper free.
In the North Fork of the Kalispell?
North Fork in Washington.
Okay, yeah, there's a guy that has a hopper thing too that is usually these INPCs, and I can't remember who it is. I'm sure you know him.
Yeah, I've got his name down.
And he's got a hopper, so it's this thing that you can put all kinds of things like papercrete and stuff and just blow it on. And again, please, any of that stuff, anything that's cellulose or paper product or anything, Add lime because it makes it so alkaline that mold can't grow in it. And anything that is paper or straw is food for mold. So whether you're taking showers inside of your house or not, that moisture is going to be passing through, and you may be making black mold on the inside of your walls and not knowing it. And literally, there's no worse way other than Lyme's disease, which the biotoxin is very similar to black mold. But you all start going crazy. Your digestion doesn't work. You don't sleep. Your mentality goes out the door. You become more alcoholic. You are low energy, and it's all because you've been exposed to black mold. If anything smells musty, run. If you ever get clothes that sat too long and they're musty, throw them away. It's even in the Bible. If there's a spot of mold on your cloth, burn it and throw it away. So I don't ever mess around with black mold. Just run. Don't put bleach on it, put vinegar, or there's probably other things too, but we won't do that discussion. Anyway, these are hyperadobe is the better alternative than earthbag, because I did my earthbags like this so they formed around each other so I wouldn't have to use barbed wire, but Khaki Hunter came over and just chewed me a new one because I wasn't using, barbed wire. And oh my God, what if we had an earthquake and we live on a fault line? I'm like, they're curved, they're not going anywhere. So anyway, I told her. But anyways,
What are those?
so the better thing to use is this hyperadobe, which is the mesh bag that sweet potatoes come in. And you get it from the Canada Bag Company. CanadaBag.ca or something like that. But look it up because you can get a 1,000-foot roll for like $450, and you can do like a 1,200-foot house, so they say. I think. I can't remember. I'm not very good with numbers, but it seemed like with 1 or 2 rolls, I could do a whole wall system. Okay, so
what did you put in?
So the thing about it is that if you were to do like a dome or a house out of this, when you tamp it, it seals to the moisture in the dirt below it that comes through it. So he's putting, these are cut out 5-gallon buckets, and you're sliding a long strip of it onto the bucket, and then you're filling it in place, and you're just moving this bucket along as you're filling it. And then once your thing is done and you've got all your forms in for your doors and your windows and everything, you come up against it, then you tamp it and it seals to the soil below it. So, or you can even water it and tamp it, but it seals it so it's all soil. You don't have to have, and to me, I like the idea of not being surrounded by strands of metal so that you're living in a Ferris cage, because we're trying to get away from that, right? Because it ends up picking up on currents, and then we're just it's zapping more than we are. So, and then if you put together that with that whole flooring system we saw in the beginning, it's like, I could have an instant house, So, that's that guy. So just looking at some of the really cool, it's really fun seeing these things. And so anything that you want to do with hyperadobe, just look up the earthbag stuff. And I mean, it's just so cool because it's all wrapping around like a beehive. And you could almost even mix something with hyperadobe and aircrete foam. And I mean, but you get into this aircrete foam and you can do all this kind of stuff. You put beams in as you're building, and so your second floors go on. It's totally bomb-proof. It's completely weight-bearing.
So the aircrete, do you know what is it? Can you use it like fire brick?
Use it like what?
Fire brick.
I don't know.
I was thinking it was like what a great concept for doing rocket stoves for like a bus.
Oh yeah, that might be. Aircrete might be the answer that Paul's been looking for this whole time, because he's always looking for a moldable foam core, that you can transport and ship. So you should look it up. I should tell him.
Roof rolls. So does it make the roof too?
Well, now this is the earthbag, and remember there's 2 layers of barbed wire going through every one of those, so they're not going to slip.
The foam crete.
If you can do what with them? I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Okay. We're making the dome shape, but I wondered if you could use it even as a roofing material.
Well, the domes have their own roof, and keep that idea because I wanted to see. This is a little bit more about the light straw. So this is what I'd probably do for the interior walls. So if I framed my walls, and plus it's really nicely soundproof. So you don't want rooms to, and all this stuff, it helps you avoid using, if you can, because I'm so mold paranoid, if you could never have to use sheetrock in a house, you're going to be so much better off because you get one bit of water damage and there is mold forever eating that paper on sheetrock. Okay, so just pledge that you'll do something other than sheetrock. In fact, there's actually something that's like sheetrock, but it's made out of lime.
Yeah, this one is so strong. You can
Yeah, and you know what? You could use knapweed. If you dried knapweed, I always think knapweed would be really good fiber for like doing floor. Super hard fiber. It's almost like hemp, but it's like, you know, you always try to look for a way to chip it up. Yeah, knapweed. But you know, you wouldn't want to catch it before it goes to seed and dry because then you're like embalming thousands of year potentials in your house in knapweed. Who wants to keep that around?
We use wood chips in a process like this, and clay, just clay from the soil.
For an infill?
For an infill, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Same thing you do with light straw, but we tried wood chips.
Oh, good. Did it work out okay?
It worked okay, but yeah, you definitely need to line it though.
Yeah, just so be careful. I mean, it loves paper, wood, straw. You know, get rid of any books that you have that are stinky or water damaged. So this is the slip. It shows how wet it is, and you toss it, and then you have like a 4x8 thing of sheetrock, or not sheetrock, plywood. So you have 4x8, you cut it in two, you put it between your walls, and once you toss all that straw, you stuff it down in there, and you have somebody stomping on it like this, and you pour more of that slip onto it, and you completely stomp it so that it gets all muddy and set in there. And they say that, like, I was going to build a greenhouse with this as my back wall, and they say that if you get 3 people, one person mixing the straw, one person wheelbarrowing, and one person stamping on it, you could do a 90-foot wall in a day. But 60 feet tall. Because what you do is you do the first 2 feet, and by the time you get to the end of the wall, you move your panels up, and this is set up long enough to where you go up and you do another layer. Dries that, well, it sets up. It doesn't really dry. In fact, you don't want to do a process like this when it's still freezing temperatures. So this is a good late spring, summer, fall, because you want it all dried out by the time that you're ready to, and then you stucco it and everything. Because you don't want moisture in it that will freeze, although it wouldn't really matter. It matters more to your plasters. This could freeze and expand. But again, this is like for interior walls or south-facing walls because there's a lot of clay in it. It will hold heat. So if you're going to do like a straw bale house, do a light straw or straw clay infill on your south-facing, maybe east-facing, where you do straw bale on your north and your west because you want to block the cold and block the heat. So,
what is it? Are they putting some kind of concrete into this?
You don't use Portland cement. You don't use concrete at all. You use clay, sand, and straw.
And lime.
And just clay and sand and water for the slip and lime. And then you have to be careful not to have there's a gal here, she's gonna talk here. And like you can just look up slip form straw clay, and then it kind of takes you down the rabbit hole of rammed earth. And you get people that show like for thousands of years we've done rammed earth. And this light clay or straw clay slip is it's kind of like rammed earth, but they don't have the clay in it, or they don't have the straw in it. And then so you think, oh man, I want a really thick rammed earth house because it's how our ancestors all did it, and even in northern climates they used it. But I like the whole insulated factor. There's naturalplasters.com put out a video on all kinds of different ways to do your natural plasters, and it's a wonderful study if you can ever go to a workshop. And she's going to talk about,
Right now we're working on doing a finished lime plaster on the outside of
not having too much lime, because the reason why you don't use cement is you don't want to trap the moisture in the straw bale wall.
They lost the original structure in a forest fire about a year ago, and now we're building them a beautiful straw bale house to replace it. It incorporates a lot of trees that they lost in the forest fire are included in the house. We milled some pine, and we also used some oak and some live edge stuff. And then the walls are straw bale.
See how they have the nice strips to make sure you don't get wonky walls? You look like a hippie if your walls are not straight.
Final plaster today, and it's a beautiful color. This is the wet color. Lime dries quite a bit lighter because it's a very powerful white agent. So we put a lot of pigment in this, but it's still gonna get a lot whiter than this. It's dark now because we keep the lime plaster moist for about 2 to 3 weeks after we apply the lime plaster.
So all these are just wonderful tips.
And so I wanted to
and
talk
it's
a little
really
bit about
hard
lime and why we use lime as an exterior finish instead of cement stucco or earth plaster. We use lime because it is, some people say breathable, but that is actually a misnomer. It does not breathe because there is no air exchange. What there is it's vapor permeable, which means that the surface can get wet and then it can dry out again without trapping water at any point in the whole wall system. So what that also means is that humidity from the inside or outside could travel through the wall without being stopped at any point. Because where humidity stops and turns into condensation becomes mold issues. And so we don't want to create any vapor barriers at all in a straw bale wall system, or really any conventional house system. Because mold in Texas is a big issue in building. So having vapor permeable buildings is very critical for us.
So, there again, never trapping the stuff behind it. Getting into these different systems, you can even, I just heard the other day about a gal, in the plenary, about a gal who's making money just bringing sheep herding little cabins, those things that you pull behind for the sheep herder.
Oh.
And she's renting those out in a to show her system. Right, but there's it's a little Kwanzaa hut type of thing on wheels, and I don't know who makes them, but
Bass.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
Right, exactly.
Bass.
Because I've seen them, and they've got their nice guardian dogs, and they've got their sheep, and they just pull them along with the sheep. And people live out there all summer in them. So, there's just a lot of ideas that you go to, and I wanted to know who's all seen that Italian guy that makes a house, like shows you how to make a house with his bare hands, like primitive skill style, and how to make the clay tiles.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's see, where are we? I added some of his stuff here, but I'm not seeing it. It's Prezi, Prezi.com, and like I said, I just,
It's PowerPoint for hip people.
It's for people who don't know how to do PowerPoint. And my daughter showed me how to do it. She was what they use in her school. So
This is a different program.
PREZI. So if you Google, so anyway, I had it on here, but it didn't load or something. It's not on here like I thought it would be, but. I did put it on here. It's somewhere. That's the one thing about Prezi is like you can lose yourself in the world of Prezi. Is like, where did that go? Where's that bubble? So anyways, it's that if you Google Italian guy primitive house building, it shows you how to make the tiles from just the clay in the forest, and he makes a fire and he makes the tiles, and how to do like a heating system in the floor. I literally just how to do wall and daub, and
He even does the tools. Builds
the tools that does it, and it's like, oh my gosh. And then some of these times you see it going around Facebook, and it's like the sped up version of it, and you just watch him doing all this, and you're like, oh my god, this guy is amazing, just like this kid, like he's 23 and he's just doing this amazing stuff. And it's like, why do we need mortgages? Why do we need to like suffer and work and pay money, and like it takes me $2,000 just to get to zero every month, and it's like that's like living at like on the normal run of things, like we have a house, but it's even more now because we have a house and we have an office, and and then we're still not doing the rocket mass heater thing, so we do have that $3,000 oil bill in the wintertime if we only use forced air. But forced air is so toxic because of all the microbes and everything, dust and everything in it. So we try not to even use the forced air because we turn it on and my son starts coughing. So he's like the boy in the bubble, and because of coughing so much, you get vocal cord dysfunction where the nerves of the vocal cords sense any kind of air particulate and start to react, and then they go into that asthmatic freak out, like, oh my god, I'm going to have an attack, but it's like not asthma, it's complete opposite. They do better in humid climates where there's not the air particulate. So don't get around black mold, and never expose your children to a house with black mold, because we think that it was the black mold that kicked in my younger son's type 1 diabetes. because all these genetic illnesses are being triggered by environmental responses on top of other things. So, or, you know, so mold is definitely an issue. So, that's kind of like the basis of it. Did anybody have like questions about different kinds of things? Oh, I wanted to say like the top 10 reasons why not to do earthships, you know, is tamping soil, and then tamping soil, and tamping soil, and tamping soil. And like, I look at these people like shoveling into a thing, and they're like tamping all day long. It takes them like half an hour just to do one tire, and then they
compactor nowhere, but
no, they do it all by hand because you have to get it in all the tiny spaces and everything like that. And it's like, you know, plastering is hard enough, but man, straw bale, it's like the whole house went up in one day. We were like, had a bluegrass band, you know, and it's like, why would anyone want to tamp? Especially when, you know, the straw bales are an R value of 55. I know that tires, they store more heat, and they're, you know, like all that, but
They also
I would,
off-gas.
sure, and you know, I would rather try to figure out a rammed earth house where you've got forms and you're doing really, you know, you're somehow, oh, I wanted to talk about the open source ecology website. Please go to the open source ecology and check out what Jabowski, no, it says like, he's got this Ukraine name. But anyway, if you look up open source ecology on Permaculture Voices 2, which was a conference, any of the Permaculture Voices conference talks or the podcasts that you can listen to, get your hands on, they're amazing. I went to PV2 and listened to Martin's talk, and it was just amazing. So he grew up in a war-torn area, and so he got, and so he gets upset that in America, everything is proprietary knowledge. Every new invention by colleges and students and everything, it's owned by the college, it's proprietary. So it's like with the mycelium running book, he wanted to get all this knowledge out because all this, we're being stifled from evolving because of things not being open source. So now there's this big movement to have all your stuff open source, which if you guys ever have any of my stuff, it's completely open source, you know, do with it. You know, I like that idea that you should make money by
intellectual property.
Well, I get to have this idea that you should make the most amount of money. You should get the word out to the greatest many in the shortest amount of time, the most amount of information. And, you know, like it's better to get $1 from 100 people than $100 from yourself. Because I get the $100 for myself, and I'm getting over it. It's like 30 years of doing this, and it's like way old. So
I have a question about cob. I know it can take a couple seasons to build, and the drying time is pretty extensive. And there's not much on the internet at all about integrating wiring into the walls. Some people say you have to do it all at once, but then you have to have like 100 people. And
what kind of wiring?
Just lighting. So.
Well, a lot of that stuff, like when in the straw bale and like that serious straw bale book, will give you a lot of different options, but they'll just run those silver tubes, you know, and then they'll the conduit. They'll do it on the inside or the outside of the building, and then they stucco
so the
around it. Yeah.
Okay, so you can kind of put it.
Yeah, or you can hide it. You can go up your interior structure if you have a post and beam structure. And like the serious straw bale says, you know, while straw bales can be load bearing, a lot of these things are load bearing. We have the wood, we have the poles, so go ahead and just structure your roof. Roof systems are all discussed in there. Oh, there's another one I was going to talk about, and I'll just draw it kind of quickly because I don't have my notebook here that I meant to bring it. But then, okay, here's another idea that this guy just gave me. It was really cool. So shipping containers. So if you have two, this is going to be a little bit off, but say you have a 52 foot and 52 foot, and this is 4 feet across, and you do, you know, like metal, you know, you do flooring that goes between them, and this is 4 feet. These are 8 feet, and then you can take a 20 footer and go off like this, and these are big enough to have like a kitchen and a bedroom, you know, or another bedroom and a bathroom and stuff like that. And then you can put your posts and you offset it a little bit so you can have like your wood storage here. Yeah, this is like one. So he's a builder. He's a builder from Las Vegas, and he's been coming up with these whole ideas of like. He's been focusing on it for years and studying. He took a sheet welding class to teach him how to do all the welding himself, and but anyway, you can remove these two walls, and you still have the top plate that keeps it structural, and then you have these like these doorway things that are one metal piece that you end up, there's I don't know, there's some like bridge around for doors and windows and stuff that you do it, but which adds strength to it. But you basically remove these two walls, and it's the right amount for a master bedroom and bathroom or whatever, this kind of stuff. But you can put all your wood under here, and you do one roof system. And like he said, you can actually do like, a shed roof system, or you can do a pitch roof system or something like that. And I said, wow, a shed roof system with that looked pretty cool and funky. And then, you can, I don't know how about stacking them and everything, but they're really versatile. Then you can just keep adding on. And he said that these are about 17,000. No, these are about, he said the whole thing would be 17. These are about 5,000 each. And these are about 3,000. And you want to get the 9.5 foot tall ones, not the 8 foot ones. So you want to get the lofted ones, because just that extra lofting allows for enough space to have a ceiling fan. And so basically, your whole home structure is $17,000, and you've got like I can't remember what he told me that the whole square footage is of this. Some math person can like whip it out, but 1,200 feet or 2,000 feet, I don't know what it is, but then you have all this outdoor space on both of these sides too that are porches, covered porches, or you could do like a little greenhouse system, and maybe part of that roof you have sunlights or skylights or something, and you've got like sort of like a little bit of an indoor.
You can even make one of them into a swimming pool.
Sure, yeah. And they never attach a greenhouse to the side of your house because it's a mold issue. You always have to have an air barrier between your greenhouse and your house. So, yeah.
I just wanted to say something. You were talking about your furnace. We just moved into a house, and it was built in 1958, and we put all the heating system in the floor. And I never realized how nice this could be. But it takes away some of this issue about what you're breathing from the...
Yeah.
And you can put your furnace outside your home. It doesn't have to be... Like, you can build a little furnace house and run the pipes through the floors. And it could heat also your gardens with other pipes and whatever you need, your chicken coop or something like that. So you can get your livestock.
In my other permaculture video, I talk about the John Payne method. You guys know about the John Payne method. They'll take, it's a video called 500 Hot Water Showers that Paul put out, or by somebody. But anyway, John Payne takes black water, water quality, food quality polytube, and runs it through a pile of wood chips and manure, and you build it, and you get all the, so like if you have an outdoor center where you like an ecological place, you get the men to pee off like balcony around it, so the men are, and they even have like women's urinal things over it where like girls can, like we did that at the last PDC where we were peeing over a compost pile, like what on this, girls, And so yeah, you divert your urine because it's like second highest to chicken manure for nitrogen, and again, the way to compost your poop is just with wood shavings and some worms and buckets. And there's a really good video called Rolly Bins. It's about how concert venues are you just using those rolling garbage things and then just doing it over and putting the compost in it and being able to facilitate whole conferences and concerts over in Australia.
You do have to be careful with urine. And one of the biggest problems that we're seeing ecologically is all these frogs that have deformations and fish. The women who are taking birth control and other hormones, anybody that's taking hormones, when it goes into an environment, it affects the wildlife, the deer, everybody that drinks the water that is part of the watershed that rolls into.
Yeah,
so
we've talked about that. Like if you have an ecological system where you're doing composting toilets and stuff, have one that's specifically for people that are on pharmaceuticals and those who aren't. Because if you have somebody that's on cancer medicines, their chemotherapy, it's completely toxic. And so getting all this stuff out of the waste streams that end up all going downstream in a river, it's amazing that there's not EPA laws against pharmaceuticals and septic systems. But if your dog is on them, your grass will be killed wherever that dog goes out and pees, according to one guy whose dog was on it.
So how do you treat that?
I don't know. I guess you inoculate it with a bunch of mycorrhizae and hope that the fungal kingdom can figure it out, because I hear they can undo radiation as well. All that stuff is completely unnatural. Like Prozac has a shelf life of 5,000 years. So we really don't have the chemistry that double checks the bioreactions and the breakdown ability, biodegradability, and how it reacts with natural chemicals and other chemicals. Well, please support, call your senators and say, hey, we want our colleges to support green chemistry, because it does double check the interactions of things. Otherwise you get, cleaning fluid that is completely a man-made chemical, and it causes a genetic illness in your child.
Also, in your community, just make people aware of this so that medicines aren't poured in the toilet, like in hospitals,
Yeah, now they're starting
residential
to.
facilities. This is not where those drugs belong. They need to be probably burned or something, and not out in the environment.
Yeah, they're starting to do that. Like Walgreens has a big recycle thing, and yeah, they definitely shouldn't go down the toilet. And that's something to take up with your septic. Again, please join the city planning departments. Please call your local poop people and figure out what's going on, and have they checked out bioswales, or have they checked out biosystems. And some of that is in the permaculture design manual of how to deal with those kind of systems. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are doing that on no waste, zero waste for cities and stuff like that. So you mentioned cob. There's a cob book. Cob is really fun. We've been up at Permies. We were doing a lot of cob for the rocket mass heaters. Does everybody know? Does anyone not know what a rocket mass heater is? Okay, so everybody's heard about it. Okay, so look it up. And there's a book out on it. Yeah, by Ernie and Erica Wisner. So what it is so what they do is they take a bench. The bench comes last. Okay, so you have a vertical feed tube, and then you have a riser. So your fire is going to go in. Your sticks are going to go in like this. Then there's the burn tube and the feed tube, and then there's this double like a stovepipe with lime and cement insulation, or perlite and cement insulation in between here, just like a 6-inch system and an 8-inch system. And the fire goes up here, and then there's this 55-gallon drum over it. There's only about 2.5 inches of space between the top, and as this heat riser the heat is rising because this is getting hot, the other air comes down and is cooled, and it goes into this 40-foot system, like an air duct system of like 5-inch or 6-inch or 4-inch or whatever. It's all in the book, and then it goes out. And sometimes people actually put the exhaust. They'll come around here and they'll put the exhaust right by here so that it actually warms the exhaust pipe, so that the air will actually rise out. This comes out at 90 degrees with no smoke because they've double burned the smoke. And every time you make a bend in the system, it counts as 5 feet. So you only get 40 feet of draw. So what comes out literally just doesn't stink, and you end up using 80% less wood. And it's all wood like that you can gather in sticks from the kindling, or you can get the bee-box, scraps from manufacturing or whatever.
Almost yard waste.
Yeah. And so, but it's not a perfect system. All the cob ovens that people make in their backyard. Ernie and Erica have a like double burn chamber or something or other rocket mass cob oven that doesn't smoke as much as your typical cob oven that puts out a plume. So look at that one, and all these plans are purchasable online on their Erica and Ernie Wisner.
I think there must be 50 people with the rocket stove.
Yeah, but
it goes all the way from the tin can up
they're
to,
huge. Yeah, and people are coming up with new innovations all the time. That's why Paul's always got these innovator workshops of how to do, boilers that, like, they're thinking about rocket mass heaters, like something comes out, they'll wrap copper tubing around it to heat the water, to capture the water, and so then that could go into your flooring or be used as a shower and stuff like that. So there's all these integrated systems, and we were talking about the aircrete domes, and I kind of thought, well, what if we could come up with different external insulation systems? Like, for example, if you put like a water barrier, and then you put wood chips all around it on the outside, and as they compost, they're letting off heat, and so you actually could be heating your house in the winter by composting action, and then in the spring you take it off.
This is the woman who said don't put a greenhouse next to your house.
I know, but you put like an EBS barrier, like a pond liner over it, I don't know, you have to have a good air exchange system. But but yeah, you keep it so that it wouldn't come into your house. But what if you could do something like that? Like I had this little joke on Facebook right after the election. Or maybe it was before that. I think it was right after. Yeah, it was right after the election. And they were all fighting over the wall and everything. And so I collected all these bags of leaves from around the neighborhood and I stacked them against my house because I have an old lath and plaster house. It's 100 years old and the floors get really cold because they're wood and they're bare wood because we got rid of all of our completely toxic carpet when my child was my kid in the bubble. So yeah, and you drop one smoothie on carpet, it's mold food forever. Just so you know, get rid of your carpet. It's like so disgusting. Yeah, keep the smoothies, I'd almost take vinyl over that. But anyways, so I stacked them high, put plastic against my paint, because I just painted my house and I didn't want it to get dirty. And everybody was like, on Facebook, I called it my white trash wall to freedom. From the gold. I'm like, here it is. And everybody's like, oh, that's so great. What about the mice? And what about the bugs? And everybody's so paranoid about the freaking mice and bugs. I'm like, get that cat. I'm like, I live in a town. I have 50,000 cats in my backyard that aren't even mine. So anyway, I pulled it away, and that there were not even very many spiders. So it was perfect, and those leaves had composted during the winter if they were bagged wet, which a lot of them were because it was raining when people were bagging. And I was able to use those all on my garden in the spring so that none of my soil was sprouting grass or it wasn't, bare or whatever. So that's a side note. But so I was just thinking, what if you could, heat these domes in the wintertime by just a layer of wood chips and then, pull them away for your paths in the fall. So you're always kind of thinking about how to get resources like that are cheap or free or something like the wood chips, and then how to compost them good. And believe me, I'm not a fan of moving composting wood chips because again, it's maybe a good mold or a not so bad mold, but it's, I've moved so many piles of wood chips that I like wood shavings now because they don't have the chewed up leaves in them to create the mold. So that's kind of what I've been researching. Does anybody else have any fabulous building styles that they've been totally turned on to lately?
Well, when we were in the permaculture course here, there was an architect in Whitefish that I've never been able to go visit him, but he is building cob houses, and they have a machine to make the bricks, and they weigh about 16 pounds, and with about 3 or 4 people, you can put up a house. And he's putting them up to look like some of these really fancy homes, but I've often thought that if a bunch of us bought one of these machines...
You're not talking about monolithic cob.
Well, they're using these machines
They're
all
compressed,
over the world.
they're compressed block, and that's why I told you to go to Marcine's workshop on.
It's made into blocks that are...
It's adobe blocks, but it's a press block. It's like a round earth press block, and this is on that open source Ecology. It teaches you how to build the hopper for about $3,000 in material. It's the whole plan on how to build the hopper. If you get it from them in their workshop in Wisconsin, I want to say, or Missouri, where he has his center, then it costs $10,000. But still, he has the open source Ecology on it. Has what he's working on is 50 machines that have interplaceable, interchangeable engine blocks that the machine either needs 1 or 2 or whatever to run it. Even tractors, everything. It's anyway. So he's got these hoppers and how you can make one, and it literally takes the soil from beneath your feet, presses into blocks, and you can do it like that.
So you don't even need to bring in very much other than maybe the lime and some cement. Usually, like in Spokane, you have to put the first couple of feet in some kind of cement to make it water resistant, but the rest of your house could be just dirt from your land.
Yeah,
if your land is enough clay. That's the big thing. Is there enough clay in your land to do it?
And some people are taking certain kinds of things and then doing spray foam insulation and everything, and it's if it's been proven that once it's dry or whatever, it's not releasing off gases or whatever, I'm not against using, synthetic things, but you have to really trace back and, how's it produced, what's the cost of the Ecology to have it produced, but I'm very careful because cement has a very high carbon footprint. It's probably one of the worst polluters, in a lot of areas. It's the worst mercury contributor through the air. The mercury in our lake is from a cement plant in Idaho or Washington. And so, by Priest Lake, actually. So anyway,
The mercury in flathead lakes
it comes from the air. It comes from the cement factory in Priest Lake.
And also the coal burn in China goes back.
Yeah. It's all around. But like they say in a lot of these things, it's like we have the resources right now to build something that might last for 1,000 years. And cob lasts for 1,000 years. You'll get a new bud making it. Because I tell you, and when you did that cob for those rocket mass benches, because all the the whole thing is covered by cob. And cob, if you dig a slight hole, or sometimes you don't, and you have a tarp, and you put down a slurry of straw and clay and sand, and you have your straw, and you pour it on that, and then you tamp it in with your feet, and you keep adding clay, or you mix, you mix the clay and sand and straw together, and then you add water maybe. But you're just tamping all day long, and then you pull the tarp one way and you step on it. And you have a circle of 4 friends on the tarp. So one person's coming in one day, gets this rhythm thing, and then this next person comes in, and then the next person comes in.
A person like I who built this whole house, monolithic, yonder is one monolithic.
So Stephen came from Hermes. His son is one of the builders of the wafatis. I was going to talk about wafatis, but maybe you could talk about it.
How do you spell it?
WOFATI. It's an acronym created by Paul Wheaton, and what he swears is the best, because he just wants to strangle my throat anytime I mention straw bale.
He's even on his cups, straw bale shots.
Yeah, right. Because it's like, oh well, it's full of pesticides and blah blah blah, and it's like, is that really going to come out through the Well, yeah, and they live in a plastic house. So anyway, it's just we won't go there.
Jeez.
It's okay for people to have their strong opinions. I totally think so, because it's like says, well, maybe they really know something I don't know.
Yeah.
So I have to look at it and go, and I'm right in his face. I'm like, but what about that? Well, what about that? But what about this?
Well, Paul, he definitely knows more than you.
Yeah, of course. And I defer to wisdom and age.
Doesn't matter.
Have your own thoughts.
Yeah, well, anyway, and so I want him to prove to me why a wafati is so great when it takes you a very expensive excavator to build it. But I have been in it. It's very interesting, because what he does is he gets the logs and he puts them in right into the ground, right? Just straight into the ground.
Yeah.
And then he runs it so it's going north-south. So you have the morning sun to come in. It's kind of more of a winter
because
thing.
he's so adamant about proving the concept of the annual thermal inertia, the ATI point.
Well,
And he doesn't want to use what's so proven as he sold. So ordering the Cooper cabin's a little more. That's a little more towards the south. But yeah, this doesn't make sense not to vote.
Well, I don't know. I was in one of those one time when we were building a cob oven in a workshop with Erica Wisner, and when it was, when that very hot sun was in the south, I was glad that there was actually a roof there. So the hottest time of the day, you're not having the sun come in. So that it's coming in the morning, it's coming in the evening. And his theory is that you can live in one of these without any external heat, which I don't really agree with. But that's, whatever. We would just won't go there, because there's a whole story behind some family member and all that. So, yeah. But anyways, Evan was making one too that he was gonna. Okay, so the wafati is another system to look at, and what I do like about Paul's diagram on if you're going to have sort of like a half underground house, how you would want the water to run, so that you'd want it to run around the house and not go down under the house, and there's actually a back courtyard. You don't put a house right in the soil, really. And then another thing I want to talk about, just briefly, just to mention it, are the insulated concrete forms, the ICF. And there's a lot of people who sell different things like EcoBlock or whatever. And I have had a lot of friends like Zach Weiss, who does the half underground greenhouses. He's the sepulcher teacher here in the States. And John has the half underground greenhouse. That if you don't know about the greenhouse in Three Forks, Montana, the John Kirchner, he's here. He's a real small guy with really brilliant blue eyes. Zach worked for him, but anyway, so he started building these amazing greenhouse systems that are an enclosed loop system. They don't have any inputs whatsoever. And he did a lot of earthbag, and so I'm like, oh, I just want to do an earthbag dome. And he's like, Kelly, no, you don't want to tamp. He's like, he was wanting to come up with a solar-powered automatic tamper or whatever. And he's like, yeah, if you have a lot of third world labor to pay, it's totally worth it. But he got to the point where he didn't want to tamp another earthbag or anything in his life, and so he started just going to concrete bricks, you know, the concrete things. And then he went to the ICFs, the insulated concrete forms. And so a lot of people have found that while they might be a little bit more expensive in the beginning, they're weight bearing. You can put your dirt right next to it. It's insulated. It's like foam insulation that you pour concrete into. So it's a concrete foam house. And coming from the perspective that I'm interested in is to not have any materials in my house that mold would feed on, because we do have very wet springs here and very wet winters, and the water table is relatively high where I live, and so moisture is an issue. And so if I can get away with a house that's not made from any materials that mold feeds on, then I'm just going to sleep better at night, because what we went through is a nightmare of epic proportions. When you hear your child coughing for 12 hours a day, 3 months at a time, and they're only giving him, you know, narcotics and codeine and antibiotics and steroids, and that's the only thing in their tool belt, and nobody checked for drug interaction on a 9-year-old, you know, where all they're going together, and then we just like, they're going to kill him, so we took it off. And one of the biggest treatments for that was ozone. You can do it anally, or you can do it where they take a liter of blood out, put it with ozone, put it back in, and a vitamin C and vitamin B push, which is intravenous. And this little child is getting IV treatments all the time, just so that his immune system could catch up, so he could just stop coughing. And what we really found out was the trick and secret to that is every time you want to cough, if you're sick or whatever, or you want to clear your throat, drink water, because we're all suffering from dehydration. And the biggest therapy that she gave us, she said, if you have a bad habit of clearing your throat all the time, she said, put beans in your pocket every time you clear your throat, and you take a drink of water instead. You get put it in the pocket, and if you instead clear your throat, you have to put the bean back in the pocket. So it teaches you to drink water, not clear your throat or not cough, because so many of these pollutants and all the smoke and everything that we have, and we're all getting too dried. If anybody drinks alcohol, you're getting just totally toxified and dehydrated, and you just keep wanting to push the waters, but it's better to always be sipping a little bit. You know, they say just get a pop top and keep drinking it. And so when you're doing this kind of work and you're building your hand-built homes, it's a lot of times we're working with lime plasters, or you're working with some cements or something like that. Another really important reason. But you know, talking about construction, there's a really good book I think everybody should have, which is the Healthy House book, and it's how to not have a sick house. And if you just look up books on mold on Amazon, mold poisoning, it's something like the Healthy House mold. And so it helps build like construction, like you never vent your bathroom up into the attic. And you should actually all check your attics to see, because a lot of the older construction did. There's a new thing in crawl spaces that they're not venting crawl spaces right now, and for some reason. And so they're all black mold under crawl spaces. So if you have any feeling that your house is making you ill, probably right. So, and you know, there's mold protocol, but blue-green algae or chlorella and lots of activated charcoal at night will help pull some of that stuff out of your system. So those are two of your really big ones. You know, maybe some neem, taking neem tablets seem to really help them. So,
it's not just in your house, so it's all over our environment.
But the outdoor molds will kill the indoor molds. So it's the indoor molds that are trapped in a house, and especially the black molds. When people started putting fungicides in paint, the black molds actually started to mutate and become deathly. Yeah, their biotoxins changed. They got worse.
I had a lot of problems with both the mold in leaves and like the snow level, when it just, the first time it all comes off your lawn, there's a layer of
pink mold.
Well, it's black on mine, and that becomes airborne as soon as the wind blows it, and then you get it in you. So you have to be really careful.
The best thing you can do in that situation, I believe, is to really, believe it or not, is to really water your lawn. As soon as that snow comes off, if there's any way, or put a layer of like Paul has this great video on fertilizing your lawn with a bale of hay. And it actually does really work. And so if you have grass that's thrashed or it's in an area that's really compacted, just throwing a bale of hay out there and letting it grow up and through it might be good. But yeah, that first, I try to keep my pets off it because they track it in the house all the time. So if you can, when the snow recedes and you have all that mold on your grass, try to do what you can to keep them off.
There's different qualities of straw or hay you can get out there. Like what's a good way to know that you're getting some that isn't treated with
You have to ask the person who has it.
pesticide?
Yep, you ask them if it's got a, what do they call that? What do they call that herbicide that's
Cordon.
it's like a 7-year herbicide.
That's Cordon.
Yeah, but they call it a persistent herbicide. And one time this guy was selling straw and I asked him and he said, oh, I don't know, I'll get back with you. And he called someone, he goes, oh yeah, it is, it's sprayed. And I said, no, that's not good for anything. So, and be careful using cardboard too, because literally I just hauled a whole truckload of cardboard away that was put under wood chips, and it was from China, and it did have formaldehyde in it, and it did not break down. So I kind of am a fan of newspaper or phone books or stuff.
Charlie's afraid of glue in there, my son.
In what? Oh,
in cardboard. He thinks that should be in the garden.
Yeah, yeah, and then you're always pulling tape out, so. So, be careful of your systems with mold. I think sometimes, like, my son can't even really spend much time in my yard, and so it's probably because of all the stuff I've hauled in with wood chips, and my wood chips always, like, if you get a pile of wood chips, you really have to deal with that pile within 3 or 4 days, because then it starts to mold. And if you get a pile of wood chips and you're not going to get at it for a while, just forget about it for about 2 or 3 years. Because the second that, if it's been chipped with leaves, because the second you get into it, if there's a batch of leaves, it is just pluming with mold everywhere. And wear a mask. Anytime you're dealing with anything with mold, wear a mask and water things down to keep. As soon as I spread anything in my garden, like anything, I'm watering it to try to keep the mold spores down and not just going airborne everywhere. So, does anybody have any questions on building or ideas or comments? So a lot of your stuff, if you have building codes or building places, check and see what your laws are, and check and see with your building department if you can do some experimental building on alternative housing. And a lot of times you can do a 10 by 10 shed that's under the the requirement.
Square feet.
Yeah, and can you go up?
That's in Montana. In Oregon, it's 200 square feet, but it's still what?
Bonner County's 1,000.
Unpermitted?
Yes.
Bonner County?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Which county? Which Bonner County?
Where's that?
And we have no building code whatsoever.
Oh, you're in Idaho, though, right?
It's Idaho.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can think about doing kind of like sunroom walkways between things. Up here in the northern climate, we always need spaces for sunning.